In this video, I'm going to cover the basics on what you need to know in order to start sewing as a beginner. If you recently just bought a sewing machine, or maybe a family member or a loved one gifted you a sewing machine and you don't know what to do, where to start, what tools or supplies you need, how to get up and going with your machine, then please watch this video all the way to the end, because I'm going to cover the basic functionalities on what you can do right now today with your machine. Pull it out the box, or maybe you have it out the box already, take the cover off, and you literally can follow these basic steps and start sewing today in as little as 20 minutes. Now, there are a lot of moving parts when it comes to the machine. I'm not going to cover all of those moving parts with the machine. I'm just literally going to cover the basics on what you can actually start doing right now so you can start practicing with sewing. When you take your sewing machine out the box, it's going to come with a manual. I encourage you to please spend some time and read that manual. We're not going to go over the manual today. Your machine is also going to come with a bunch of supplies, come with a lot of tools and supplies that you need to use in addition with your machine. Now, my machine is a computerized model. It's a Brother HS3000 model, which was only a special limited edition made. At the time it was built, it was made exclusively as a limited edition just to offer on a specific network. I won't name the network so I don't get copyright or something. I don't know. I'm trying to learn the whole YouTube lingo world right now. So I'm not going to name the company, but my model was a very limited edition exclusively made for that particular company so they can sell. And my aunt bought the machine and she gifted it to me years later. She only used it maybe twice. She's not into sewing. She's a crochet person. She makes some amazing pieces with her crochet craft. So with my sewing machine, you won't be able to find this particular model, but there are similar models for sale in stores. However, and there's also mechanical machines. But either way, the basics that I'm going to cover in this video pretty much follow the same steps for your sewing machine if you have a mechanical one or if you have a computerized one like mine. Just follow the same steps, but we're just going to cover the basics of getting you up and going with your sewing machine, whether it's computerized or whether it's mechanical. Now, once you pull your sewing machine out of the box, you're going to see this section on your machine or where you are going to plug it in. You're going to have two cords. One is your power cord, so you can plug your machine in. And then your second cord will be for your pedal, your foot pedal. This is your foot pedal that you're going to put your foot on. Your heel of your foot will go here. Your toes will go up here. And you use your foot to push on this pedal, which controls your sewing speed on your machine for the needle. It controls your sewing needle. So I'll show you how that works in a second. But you essentially put your foot flat and you're going to press down with your foot. Okay? I don't sew with shoes on. It's very heavy and uncomfortable for me to use my foot pedal with shoes. So I always wear my socks to use my foot pedal. Now, on some sewing machines, the plug here for your foot pedal. Mine is not that way. Mine is in the back. So I'm going to plug mine in right here in the back. And again, yours might also be on the side, but unfortunately, to show you this, mine is in the back. Okay, so I got my foot pedal plugged in. I have my power plug plugged in. And then the third thing you'll see on your machine is the power button. So turn this on. All right, so I'm going to turn on my machine now. And then you'll know it's on because, of course, you see the light and plus you heard the little jerk, the little stuttering jerk. All right, so now I'm going to put my pedal foot back on the floor now that we got it plugged in. Now, the really cool thing about using a computerized digital machine is that you don't necessarily need that foot pedal to use the machine. You can actually just use these three functions right here to sew. But again, I'm not going to show you how to do that. That's a little bit more advanced. That will be in a future video. For now, we're just going to go over the basics functionalities so you can get up and going successfully by using all of the plug-in methods instead of using this method to sew without plugging in your foot pedal. Now, the first thing you want to do once you have your sewing machine plugged in, you have your foot pedal plugged in, you have the power plug plugged in, you want to thread your sewing machine. There are two sections on your sewing machine that requires thread. This top section right here is called the spool, so this will be your top thread. And then this bottom section right here is the bobbin, so this will be called your bottom thread. And these two sections are very important because you're going to sew top thread and bottom thread, which will hold your fabric together when you're making your stitches. Now we're going to do that in a second. Once you thread your machine and you put your fabric down, you're going to see some stitches right here off to the side of your machine. Now these stitches, I just want to let you know, you do not need all of these. There are tons of stitches here, top and bottom. Also on mine, because mine is computerized, there's some other stitches that I could use on this side. So I have never used all of these stitches. The only stitches we focus on as a sewist, as a sewer, is the first, the first 7. So on your machine, you would focus on the first 7. And basically that is only 2 stitches that we're going to use. Straight stitch and zigzag stitch. You're going to use your straight stitch if you're sewing with like woven fabrics, cotton, things like that, denim. You use your zigzag stitch to sew with stretch fabric like knits. That's also if you're sewing with satin, silk, you use a straight stitch. So the only section we need the most as folks who sew, as a sewist, as a sewer, is just the first 7. Now, if you can look here, you'll see 00, 01, or 002. You would pick one of these as your straight stitch. And then over here, you have stitch 03, 4, 5, 6, 7 are your zigzag stitch. Now, like I said, the zigzag stitch is when you're using stretch fabric. Also, these zigzag stitch can also be used if you do not have a machine that serges. It's also known as casting or overlock. So if you don't have an overlock machine, a serger machine, then you would use your zigzag stitch as your serging overlock method on your fabric. I'll show you how to do that in a separate video. But for now, we're just going to focus on using straight stitch on cotton fabric. Now, let's thread our sewing machine together. Now, when you thread your sewing machine, you're going to need your bobbin, which is this plastic thing here. It's like a little wheel ball, a little wheel. So you need your bobbin. This comes in plastic. You can also get a bobbin in metal. I've never used metal before. Your sewing machine may come with some, but you can buy these at Joann, Michael's, Hobby Lobby, Amazon, Walmart. They have a notion section at Walmart. And then we're going to put our thread through the hole. And this will go on the bottom right there. And then the top thread is this spool, goes on the top. Now let's first start with threading our bobbin because we have to do this first to put it on the bottom for our bottom thread. Now on your sewing machine, you're gonna have a section that looks like this. This is where you put your bobbin. Now before we put our bobbin there, we need to put our thread inside of the hole. So let's do that now. Okay, so now that I have put my thread through the hole, let's put it on top of this part here. Now we're going to put our foot on our foot pedal and start pressing to wind the bobbin. And then you're going to do this until you'll notice if your foot is still on it, it's not winding anymore. That's because it's now full. And just pull it back like that, and then we can pull it out. Once you cut it off, now you have a ready-to-use bottom thread for bobbin. And this piece goes right there. Again, you have a little map here showing you how to do this. So let me show you how to do this right now. How to put your bottom thread following this direction instructional map. Now when you put this on, you want to make it look like a P. You see how the thread is coming out on the right side, not like this, not like this, not like this. No, it has to be this way, like a P. Remember, we're following our map here because the map shows us that P is going to loop.
So let's show you how to do that right now. You pull this part to take the cover off, and we already have our P. So we're going to put it down. Okay, let's see if I can get you to see what I'm talking about. Sorry if the camera's a little shaky. Okay, so we're going to place it there. Right here is where we're going to put the rest of the thread, and it's going to go through here and out here, and then we're going to cut it. There's a little blade right here that's going to cut the thread. So let's show you how to do that now. Okay, so remember now we're going to follow this pattern just like the map. So put your thread right through this little section right here. Just put your finger here and hold it down. Loop it down and then carry it over and then cut. There's the thread. We cut it. And then put our top back on. And now our bottom thread is in place. So now we need to do our spool. So let's do that now. Now when we thread the top part of our machine, it's going to go this way. It's going to come down here. We're going to loop it under, it will come up, and then we're going to hook it inside of this metal piece and bring it down, and then we're going to thread our sewing machine right here in this section. Now again, when you're ready to thread the top part of your machine, top thread, the spool, again, you're going to have instructions right here showing you how to do that. This one is for the bobbin section, that we just got done doing. And this section is to thread the top machine, starting right here, and then it comes through here, it comes down here, you loop it under, and then it goes through this metal piece right here, and then you bring it back through, and then we're gonna finish it off here and insert it in the needle. So let's do all of that right now. But before we do that, let me show you how to put your needle in this section. Our machine will come with a set of tools and supplies in a pouch like this. A whole lot of tools. I don't use all of these tools, but the ones that I do use is this tool right here to unscrew, to take the needle out, and to screw it back, to put the needle back in. I also use my different presser foot. I use a brush to clean it because sometimes all of this in here get dusty and you need to clean it. So I'm gonna use this one and clean it, brush it off. And here are presser foots. These are different types of presser foots, and I'll go over presser foot in a second. All right, so what we're gonna do first, I call these the pouch supplies because they come in this pouch. But again, I don't use, they come with needles and different foots. And this seam ripper, this is for buttons. I've never sewn buttons before, so I don't use that. Just as well as we have stitches on here for buttons, because this machine also does embroidery. I've never used all these machines. I've never done buttons. I've never used this to do embroidery, but it's computerized to do all that. I just focus on the top row. So on your machine, you might not have a row like this. You might actually have a round wheel showing you the different stitches, but just follow your wheel and follow by using these stitches, straight stitch and zigzag stitch. All right, so let's put our pouch supplies to the side and our brush, dusty brush, and this one. All right, so this is what we're gonna do now. Sorry, my camera's a little shaky, forgive me. We're gonna get through this. Now first we're gonna unscrew this because there's a needle already sitting in here. So I wanna take it out and show you how to put it in. So your machine should come with a tool to help you do that. So we go here, unscrew this, and you wanna hold it, don't let it fall. Right, there we go, and the needle dropped out. Now, when your sewing needle is going to have a round side and a flat side. So here's the round side, and then when I turn it over, here's the flat side. I hope you can see that. This is the flat side, and this is the round side. Now the flat side, the flat surface, goes the back way. The round surface faces you. So let's turn it back this way so the round part of the needle can face me. Okay, so here's the round part and it's facing us. So it goes up under here. The flat part goes under here. So we're going to stick it under here. And then you put your needle in and then twist it. And then you use your tool again to tighten it. There we go, nice and tight. All right, so our needle is securely in place, and I'm going to put back my tool into my pouch section.
The top, now we're going to top thread our machine. This goes on the spool. And remember, we're following our instructions on our directional map here. Our directional instructions here. Okay, according to our thread instructions, we're following this one that says 1. So we're going to bring it this way under here. This way under here. And then we're going to bring it through this section, this first one here. Bring it down. And we're going to bring it down. Loop it under here. Bring it back up through here. And then you can see this metal section right here. You see that metal piece right there? The thread needs to go and hook inside of that. And then we bring it back down.
And then then the thread needs to go through this little eye of the needle. Now, my machine is computerized and it comes with a automatic threader here, but it don't work for some reason. There's a little tiny part missing. It's like a little hook in the middle is missing. This is how my machine came. I never had an opportunity to look into it and find out why that piece is missing. So if you're good with your eyes, you would just usually stick your thread through the hole, or you could use another tool to help you with this. One of these threaders to help you. One of these tools. I used to use this when I was beginning to sew as a brand new sewist. I don't use this tool anymore. I just usually use my eyeball and stick it in there. So I'm going to stick it in there right now. Sorry, this thing is missing a part. I don't know what's wrong with it, so. Sometimes I have to cut a piece off to get it through the eye, so let me do that really quick. Okay, now let's stick it in the eye. All right, and there we have it. I just thread the needle. Now, you got to pull it through like that. Now my needle is thread. If you're new to sewing, I don't recommend you do it that way. I recommend you follow the instructions to self-thread or use one of these threading tools that you can buy to help you do that part. I've been sewing since 2012, so I kind of mastered it where I don't have to use this automatic threader and I don't have to use a little tool. Now, another thing to pay attention to on the sewing machine is the lever foot. There's usually a piece right here that you use to lift it up and down. This is where you slide your fabric underneath. And then these little teats right here are called the feed dogs. So the feed dogs is what pulls the fabric together. It kind of slides the fabric up and down together in order for your fabric to go through the machine and for your fabric and sewing machine to close together to sew. That's what the feed dog does. Now these are your presser foot. There is another tool back here that you use to take the presser foot off. So you just press your finger, back there, and then you take it off like that. And then to put it back on, you just put your presser foot down, presser foot on this middle section, and it goes up under there like that. And then your thread goes through like that to the back. Now, there are several different presser foots, like I said before. There are tons of presser foots. Here's some of them. Some of these are for zigzag stitch that we talked about earlier. Some of them are for casting. If you're trying to do, you don't have a serger machine, so you would use a casting foot. And then some are just, you can do one for blind hemming. This is casting foot. This one is just the basic standard one, what I use. That one is most popular, and this one is most popular. Those two, presser foot. Now, on your sewing machine, when you're ready to start sewing, once you place your fabric on your sewing machine so you could start sewing, you also need to pay attention to this section. By default, it will always be 0, 0, 2.5, and 0.0. Now this section right here with the letter J, this section right here is to tell you what presser foot you're going to use, basically what presser foot you're going to use to sew over here. So if you're sewing straight stitches like 0, 0, 0, 0, 1 or 0, 2 or 0, 2, what you do is use your function key on your sewing machine, mine is this one, and change it. So for me, I often use 0, 0, 1. 0, 0, 1 telling me that's a J presser foot. When you look at your presser foot, you'll see it has a letter J on it. Look really good. Can you see that? Right there. There is a letter J. So that's the presser foot for me to use for a straight stitch. Let's say, for example, you want to use a different stitch. So when you start pressing your button, the letter will change and it will tell you what presser foot you need to put over there. Presser foot G, and presser foot G is a zigzag stitch. 0, 6, 0, 6 is for 0, 6 right here. So that would be, this one says G. You can look and see the G right, you could look and see the G right there. So if I was to use this stitch, 0, 6, zigzag, I would use this G. Now this one right here is for your stitch, the 2.0, that's for the top of the stitches, to make your stitches wide. And then this section here is you always, well, I've learned to always keep it between 5 and 4, but I realize 4 always works better for me, so I put it on 4. All right, so let's put this back to a 1, which is what I use for cotton. And we're gonna put my J presser foot back here. Put this back through here. So I have 2 scrap piece of fabrics here. Now this is a pair of cotton fabric. It's cotton denim. And this is the right side of the fabric. And this other side, once you flip it around, is called the wrong side of the fabric. When you're watching other sewers, they'll say ugly side, pretty side. So whenever you're sewing, you're going to always sew with the right sides, the pretty side together, facing each other. So you put both pretty sides down like this. Okay, and then we're going to put it under our presser foot right here. We're going to put it under there. Grab your levy, put it down. And then the first thing you do is Press this button to put the needle down, or you can use the hand wheel right here and put the needle down. So for me, I love using these touch button business, so I'm going to use this. Put the needle down. Now, before we start sewing, on your sewing machine, you're going to have a speed dial. So this tells you how slow you're going, and then the more the symbols are pointing, that means the faster you're going. Me, I always like to keep it somewhere right here in the middle between slow and semi-medium fast. I don't like to use this one. That's too much speed for me. My stuff gets wacky and all out of the place, and I don't like sewing that way. So I like keeping mine somewhere in between slow to medium fast speed. Now this section here works in conjunction with your foot pedal, the pedal we talked about earlier. This pedal down there, this pedal down there. So I don't use shoes. I can't use shoes. It's too heavy. So I just use my socks. All right. So now let's fix the speed somewhere like that. And you can test it out by sewing your speed. Now you're going to put your hand here to hold it. Don't push it. Let the feed dogs and the machine glide and do its work. But you're going to politely hold your hand down, very soft and nice and politely. And make sure your thread is in the back. And then, okay, using my foot pedal on the ground, that's too fast for me. So let's control this a little bit less. Okay, that's too slow. Speed it up a little bit. All right, and then you press your needle button to bring it back up, and then you cut. So now that we got the right speed that we're comfortable with to sew, let's do it again. This time we're going to put this back down, press our needle down, and we're going to use this back stitch. This stitch is what you're going to use to securely keep your fabric in place nice and tight so nothing pops and breaks. So press your foot down on the pedal and then press this, and then see it goes backwards to secure that stitch. And then we're sewing straight. Actually, this is too fast for me, so I'm going to control this a little bit slower. There we go, much better for me. And we're just slowly sewing a straight stitch. Now you're going to use this back stitch in the beginning of sewing and also here at the end of sewing. Always use your back stitch. Okay, so now we're coming up to the end. We're going to stop, release your foot off the pedal, press this, put your foot back down on the pedal, and sew it again. Lift up that, pull this out, and cut. You can also cut your fabric right here on the side. I don't use mine. I just always like using my scissors. And there we have it. We've sewn our first straight stitch. And here you can see the back stitching before and when you're done, you back stitch. So this is how you start sewing as a beginner. Now remember, we are sewing on the wrong side of the fabric. So this is how it looks when I flip it. The seam is nice and clean. Seam is nice and clean, and that's sewn together.
Now this is just a base. Oh, that's my Jordan.
More TikToks will be coming soon. Y'all stay tuned.
That's my dance partner. We dance all the time on TikTok. Okay, let's focus back to business. All right, so what I just shared with you was just the basics on how to use your sewing machine, basically how to set it up, the different functionalities, how to put in your needle, the proper way to position your needle, threading your machine. Now, like I said, there's way more moving parts to this process. I just covered the basic standards, what you can actually do right now. Start practicing and start sewing on a cotton piece of fabric and get yourself comfortable with navigating your tool. Your toy is what I like to call it, navigating your machine. And then you will start, the more you practice, the better you will become and the more comfortable you will become. And then you'll be able to start advancing yourself and learning other functionalities on how to use your machine. But don't forget, your machine comes with a manual. Please spend some time reading your manual. This is part 1. In our next video, part 2, we're going to talk about sewing with zigzag stitch. I'll also show you the different things you can do with that zigzag stitch, on how to use it as if you had a serger, how to use it as casting overlock on your fabric, also how to sew with knit fabric using your zigzag stitch to create finishing, is what it's called, where you want to finish your seams. For example, although we've sewn a straight line, our seams is not professionally finished. This is what you call raw seams. So naturally we would use our serger machine. This is too much tongue twisters. Naturally we would use our serger machine. Naturally we would use our serger machine to finish our seams like a professional clean look. Look inside of your clothes, you'll see what I'm saying. Use your sewing machine here. When I first started sewing, I didn't have a serger. I didn't get one until years later when I started sewing for myself. And then I started to turn this hobby into a business, and I started sewing apparel wear. And it really picked up heavily during 2020, where I just took off. So that was years ago, prior to 2020, years ago when I bought my serger machine. I stopped using my zigzag stitch here on my standard sewing machine. But I'll show you how you don't have to do that. You don't have to go buy a serger. You can just use your standardized sewing machine with a zigzag stitch and give yourself a finished seam. So I'll show you how to do that in the next video. And lastly, if you're new to sewing and you do have a sewing machine and you haven't used it yet, I also created this video here showing you the tools and supplies you need to use as a beginner. So please go watch that video when you're done with this one. You can also download the guide. I also created a really quick cheat sheet checklist free guide for you. The link is in the description below, giving you the tools and supplies you need to start sewing as a beginner. So I hope this video was helpful. If you like it, please give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to click on the link below. I created a checklist guide for you, giving you all the supplies and tools you need to start sewing as a beginner, basic tools and supplies. Remember, this is just basic. We're not getting into all of the advanced heavy things that you will learn at a later time. Now, I'll be creating more videos like this, so please be sure to subscribe to my channel for part 2, giving you the next methods on how to sew with knit fabric on zigzag stitch. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. It's too much. Thumb twister. Bye.